Every time he got drunk, he would beat me. It was the hardest time in my life.
Everyone saw her as just another old woman with a soft smile and gentle eyes. She looked like the kind of grandmother who baked bread in the mornings, told bedtime stories, and lived a quiet life of peace. But what they didn't know was that behind that smile, behind those wrinkles and quiet nods, there was a storm. She carried a past filled with bruises no one ever asked about, nights filled with silent cries, and mornings when she forced herself to pretend that everything was normal. People admired her strength but never questioned where it came from because the truth was too heavy to share. When she was young, she thought marriage would bring happiness. She hoped for love, a partner, and a home where she felt safe. Instead, marriage became the start of her suffering. Her husband, the man she trusted, became her greatest pain. He shouted at her, called her names, and when his anger grew, his hand struck her like she were nothing. She carried those wounds in silence. She covered her bruises with scarves, hid her tears from neighbors, and cooked with shaky hands, pretending life was normal. Nobody knew. Nobody asked. She stayed quiet, thinking it was the only way to survive. The days turned into years, and she lived in a house that felt like a cage. Every sound of his footsteps filled her with fear. Each time the door slammed, her heart jumped. She learned how to move quietly, how to stay out of his way, how to keep the children calm so they wouldn't bring on his anger. Sometimes, after the beatings, she would sit in the bathroom and press her hand against her bruised face, whispering to herself that tomorrow might be better. But tomorrow was always the same. She didn't tell her family, she didn't tell her friends. She believed that no one would believe her, and even if they did, she was too scared to leave. Yet even in the middle of pain, she found ways to protect her children. She took the hardest blows so they wouldn't feel them. She told them stories at night to cover the sound of shouting in the other room. She smiled through her tears when they brought her little drawings from school, holding them tightly and promising silently that she would not let this darkness take away their childhood. She sacrificed her happiness so her children could still feel a piece of joy. It was heavy, but that's what mothers do. At night, when everyone was asleep, she would sit by the window and whisper prayers into the dark sky. She begged God for strength. She asked for courage. Sometimes she simply wished to wake up without so much pain. She cried quietly so the children would not hear, wiping her face with her hands and forcing herself to get up again at sunrise. The world outside thought she was fine. They saw her carry baskets from the market, smile politely at neighbors, and walk with steady steps. Nobody knew that every step carried 1,000 invisible wounds. One night, it all felt too heavy. He had beaten her badly, worse than before. She lay on the floor, her body aching, her heart breaking. For the first time, she thought about ending it all. She thought maybe the only way to escape was to disappear forever. But then, from the other room, she heard her little boy's voice calling Mama. That single word saved her. She realized she couldn't give up. She couldn't leave her children alone with him in this world. In that moment, she chose to survive, not for herself, but for them. It wasn't an easy change. It started with small acts of courage. She stopped apologizing for things she did not do wrong. She learned to look him in the eye without shaking. She found ways to hide money from him, saving coins little by little, planning quietly for the day she would finally escape. Her children gave her strength. Every smile, every hug, every laugh reminded her that she still had reasons to fight. The pain did not stop overnight, but the fire inside her began to grow. She was no longer just a victim. She was preparing to be free. One morning, after years of suffering, she made her choice. She waited until he left for work, grabbed her children by the hand, and walked out with only a small bag. She didn't look back. Her heart pounded, her legs shook, but she kept walking. She didn't know where she would sleep that night. She didn't know how she would feed her children the next day. But she knew one thing: she was free. And freedom, no matter how hard, was worth more than the prison she left behind. Starting over was not easy. She worked small jobs, cleaned houses, washed clothes, and sold food by the roadside. Some nights she went hungry so her children could eat. She wore the same old dress until it tore, but she never complained. She knew she had made the right choice. Slowly, with each day of struggle, her children grew healthier, happier, and safer. She was poor in money, but rich in courage. She built a new life from nothing, brick by brick, prayer by prayer. As the years passed, the pain of the past did not disappear, but it no longer controlled her. She looked in the mirror and saw not just scars, but proof that she had survived. She saw a woman who had been broken but refused to stay broken. She taught her children about kindness, strength, and never giving up. They grew up watching her fight, and they carried her lessons in their hearts. Now she is a grandmother. She sits in her chair with her grandchildren around her. When they ask about her life, she doesn't share every detail, but she tells them enough. She explains that life can be cruel and people can be unkind, but courage will always be stronger than fear. She tells them that even when they feel like giving up, there is always one more reason to keep going. They look at her with wide eyes, not fully understanding, but feeling the strength in her words. Her story is no longer just about pain. It is about survival. It is about love that kept her alive. It is about a woman who refused to let darkness win. Today, when people see her smile, they no longer mistake it for weakness. They see a survivor. They see a grandmother who walked through fire and came out carrying light. And that is the legacy she leaves behind.